They fined me $500 for my dog's barking. But what they did not know is that my dog is not just a pet. He is a service animal, trained to save my life when my mind turns against me. I live with PTSD. Every panic attack, every sleepless night, every moment I felt the walls closing in, Charlie was there. He barks when I black out. He nudges me back to reality when I freeze. Without him, I would not be here. And the HOA? They saw him as nothing but a nuisance, a noise, a violation. They sent a fine. But I sent them a legal storm. This is not just about barking. This is about rights, about dignity, and about the dog who defended mine when no one else would. Moving day was supposed to be a new chapter, one filled with quiet mornings, safety, and healing. I had found a small home tucked inside a suburban neighborhood, governed by a homeowners association. On the surface, it looked perfect. Green lawns, clean sidewalks, neighbors who waved. But I was not just moving boxes, I was moving trauma. Memories I could not control, flashbacks that struck without warning, and panic attacks that left me gasping for air in my own bed. That is why I never go anywhere without Charlie. Charlie is a golden lab, trained, calm, alert. He wears his service vest like armor. But his job is not physical, it is emotional. When I freeze up in crowds, he pulls me aside. When I cannot breathe, he licks my hands until I come back. When the nightmares hit, he lies across my chest to slow my heartbeat. Charlie is not a pet. He is a lifeline. Our new home had a small fenced yard and a cozy porch. Charlie adjusted quickly, exploring the yard, sniffing the air, and eventually curling up under my feet like he always does. The first few nights were peaceful. He barked once, at a loud bang outside around midnight. It startled me, too. He barked again the next morning when a delivery truck came too close to our gate, but never for no reason. He is trained to bark when he senses danger, to alert me, to protect me. That is why, when I saw the envelope taped to my door, when I read the words excessive barking and saw a $500 fine, my hands went cold, because I knew this was not just a misunderstanding. It was the beginning of a battle. It was early morning, still quiet, the sun barely pushing through the curtains, when I stepped out to check the mail. That is when I saw it. A bright yellow paper, taped to my front door like a scarlet letter. Notice of violation, $500 fine issued. Reason, excessive dog barking, disturbance to community peace. I stood frozen, rereading the notice, as if somehow the words might change. They did not. $500. For Charlie barking. Maybe twice in a week? Once when a car screeched too close, another when a banging door made both of us jump. That was it. No conversation. No warning. No courtesy check-in. Just a printed paper. An accusation. And a price tag. Charlie sat at the doorway behind me, tail slowly tapping against the floor, head tilted. He sensed my stress before I even said a word. I looked at him, and guilt crushed my chest. He was doing his job, protecting me, keeping me alive, and now he was being punished for it. I took the paper inside and immediately called the number listed at the bottom. HOA office, line 2. A woman answered with a flat, robotic tone. Yes, this is regarding property 1824 Maple Ridge Lane. We have received 3 separate complaints about dog barking coming from your unit. As per HOA Code Section 6B, fines apply for repeated disturbances. I asked when these complaints were filed. She would not say. I asked who filed them. She would not say. I explained that Charlie is a certified service animal and that he only barks during specific triggers, never excessive. Her response chilled me. Service animal or not, noise is noise, and if it is disruptive, it is still a violation. I paused. So, you are saying that a service dog trying to alert his handler during a panic attack is a violation? Silence. Then, sir, if you have an issue with the fine, you can dispute it in writing, but I suggest you take steps to control your animal. Control him? He is the only reason I have control at all. I hung up the phone and stared at the paper in my hand. It was more than just a fine. It was a message. You are not welcome here. They saw a dog. I saw the one soul who brought me back from the edge. But now, I would have to fight. Not just for Charlie, but for every person with a service animal who had ever been silenced by people who did not understand. 2 days passed, no call, no apology, just silence from the HOA. But I was not staying silent. I printed Charlie's certification. I gathered medical letters from my therapist. I even included training documents and photos of his vest clearly marked, "Service Animal. Do not distract." Then I walked into the HOA office. It was one of those sterile buildings next to the community clubhouse. Inside, everything smelled like carpet cleaner and cold coffee. A receptionist with a too-fake smile barely looked up. "Do you have an appointment?" I slid the paperwork onto the desk. "I'm here about the $500 fine for my service animal." She raised an eyebrow but buzzed someone to the back. Moments later, a man in a gray polo shirt with the HOA logo stepped out. "Mr. Daniels?" he asked. I nodded. He waved me into a side room with no windows. I laid the documents down. "This is Charlie's paperwork. He is a federally protected service animal. He barks only to alert me during episodes. The fine is not only unfair, it violates the Fair Housing Act and possibly the ADA. He glanced through the papers without emotion. "Look, we understand people get attached to their animals, but this neighborhood values peace, and barking, even from a service dog, disturbs that peace." My jaw clenched. "He does not bark unless something is wrong. Would you fine a wheelchair user for rolling too loudly across the sidewalk?" He leaned back. "This isn't about disabilities, it's about community standards." I could feel the blood drain from my face. He saw Charlie as a problem, not a protector, not a medical necessity, just noise. "If he's that much trouble," the man said calmly, "maybe he doesn't belong in this neighborhood." That sentence, that one sentence, flipped a switch in me, because for years I had been told I did not belong, because of my PTSD, because of my breakdowns, because people do not like what they do not understand. Now they were saying Charlie did not belong either? "No. You're wrong," I said, standing, "and you're about to find out how wrong." I walked out without another word, because I was done asking for respect. Now, I was going to take it. I went home, slammed the door behind me, and sat in silence. Charlie came to my side instantly, pressing his head against my arm, his eyes calm, steady, anchoring me like always. I took a deep breath. "They think you're the problem," I whispered. "They have no idea who they're messing with." I opened my laptop and typed 3 words into the search bar. HOA disability discrimination. What I found was shocking. The Fair Housing Act protects people with disabilities from housing-related discrimination, including rules or policies that unfairly restrict service animals. The Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, ensures access and accommodation for service animals in public spaces, even if local rules or preferences say otherwise. My heart pounded as I read case after case of homeowners taking action, winning lawsuits, reversing fines, even forcing HOAs to rewrite their policies. I was not alone. I called a local disability rights attorney I found through a PTSD advocacy network. She listened as I explained everything: the fine, the ignored paperwork, the mocking response from the HOA. She did not hesitate. "They're in violation," she said. "You have every right to have a service animal. They cannot fine you, they cannot harass you, and they absolutely cannot threaten to push you out." We built the case quickly. She drafted a legal notice, formal, sharp, and terrifyingly effective. It cited the Fair Housing Act, Federal Service Animal Protections, emotional harm caused by the HOA's harassment, evidence of targeted discrimination. It was not a lawsuit, but it was a warning shot. And with it, I also prepared to file a formal complaint with HUD, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. This was no longer about neighborhood peace. This was about legal boundaries they had crossed. I attached documentation, emails, and a detailed timeline of every incident. The notice would go to the HOA board, and the HUD complaint would go straight to Washington. By the end of that night, I had clicked submit on both. Charlie sat beside me, calm as ever. He did not know we were going to war, but he had already been fighting for me for years. Now, it was my turn to fight for him. The legal notice went out on Monday. By Wednesday, the HOA went completely silent. No more emails, no more fines, no more threats taped to my door. But I was not waiting for them to regroup. I had spent too many years being quiet, apologizing for things beyond my control. Not this time, so I told my story. I opened up online, first on Reddit, then in a Facebook group for service dog owners. I posted everything, the fine, the documents, the ADA violations, and how my dog had been punished for saving me. Comments exploded. They fined you for a medical alert dog? Sue them. My HOA did this too. You're not alone. Your dog's a hero. This is discrimination, period. And then, something wild happened. A local journalist who followed the service dog group DM'd me. She was working on a story about disability discrimination in housing and asked to interview me. The next morning, I was sitting on my porch with Charlie curled up next to me, a microphone in my face, and a camera filming. The very place the HOA had once tried to control. I told the truth, not just about the fine, but about how terrifying it is to live with PTSD, and how Charlie is the one thing that keeps the darkness from swallowing me whole. I showed his medical alert vest, his paperwork. I let them film him performing a calming technique when I showed signs of stress. The news segment aired 2 nights later. Veteran with PTSD fined by HOA over barking service dog. Legal battle sparks community outrage. By Friday, it had over 100,000 views on their YouTube channel. People began sending me messages, veterans, parents of autistic kids, trauma survivors, telling me they had faced the same discrimination. A petition started circulating. HOAs must recognize service animals. Stop the fines, stop the silence. It picked up thousands of signatures in days. Even my neighbors started to shift. People who once avoided eye contact waved at me. One woman from down the street walked over with homemade treats for Charlie and quietly said, "I didn't know. I'm sorry. He's a good dog." The HOA? They were cracking under pressure. Rumors spread that one board member stepped down quietly. Another was caught deleting emails related to my case. The attorney I hired forwarded me a brief message from the HOA's counsel. "We would like to resolve this matter without escalation." Too late. This was no longer about me. It was about every silent voice that had ever been dismissed, fined, or erased. And now, they were all watching. It started with a knock. Not a letter. Not a violation. Not another threat taped to my door. Just a quiet knock early one morning. When I opened it, a courier handed me a large envelope. Inside was a formal letter with the HOA's seal at the top. But this time, the tone was different. After reviewing the submitted documentation and legal counsel recommendations, the board has voted to rescind the $500 fine issued to Mr. Daniels and acknowledges that the dog in question is a certified service animal. The HOA sincerely apologizes for any distress caused by our previous actions. I read it twice, then again. I looked down at Charlie, lying peacefully by the door like always, alert but calm. He did not know we had just won, but I did. And it was not just the fine. Attached was a second document, a newly proposed HOA amendment to be voted on by residents. Service Animal Accommodations Policy. No fines for medically trained service animal behavior. Special exemption procedures added. Board training on federal disability law required. The board had finally realized this was bigger than barking. This was a federal issue, a human issue. My attorney confirmed it. They're not just backing off. They're protecting themselves from future lawsuits. It was victory. Not loud, not dramatic, but permanent. That weekend, I took Charlie for a walk around the neighborhood. For the first time, people waved with respect. One family stopped to pet him and said, "You've made this place better." Another man handed me a folded note that read, "I have a son with autism. Thank you for standing up. Because of you, I don't have to be afraid anymore." Charlie barked once, just once, when a squirrel darted across the sidewalk, and nobody complained, nobody glared. In fact, someone laughed. "That's a good dog," they said. "He is more than good. He is the reason I'm still here. And now, thanks to him, others like me will not be pushed into silence again. Because the HOA might control the fences, but we protect what's inside them. And this time, we won." Some people wear medals. Some carry scars. Me? I walk beside the reason I survived, and his name is Charlie. After the dust settled, life found its rhythm again. No more fines. No more threats. No more fear. Just peace and presence. Charlie still barked occasionally, not out of rebellion, but out of instinct. When the garbage truck slammed its brakes too loud. When I dropped something heavy and froze in place. When my breathing hit that familiar, shallow rhythm that only he can recognize. He always knew before I did. Always reacted before I asked. And now, nobody dared question him. The neighborhood changed too. People started asking real questions. About service animals, about PTSD, about what it means to live with an invisible battle. Someone put up a bulletin board by the clubhouse titled, "Service Dogs Save Lives." A retired teacher invited me to speak about emotional support animals at a community event. The HOA even issued a formal Service Animal Awareness Week. Change was happening, not just in policy, but in hearts, all because one dog barked. One evening I sat on the porch with Charlie, resting his head in my lap, the sun melting behind the rooftops. The same porch where this entire war had started, with a yellow notice and a threat. Now, there were no shadows, only light. I thought about all the people still fighting their battles, veterans, survivors, children with autism, those who depend on these silent companions who ask for nothing but love and give everything in return. Charlie was never just a dog. He was my protector, my therapist, my family. He defended me when no one else did, so I defended him back. To anyone watching, listening, or silently relating to this story, do not let them take your lifeline. Do not let anyone reduce your survival to a noise complaint. And never let your voice, or your dog's, be silenced. Because sometimes, one bark can change everything.